Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Monday version, baby. Let's hit it.
All right, so here we go. College football playoff ranking number 2 comes out on Tuesday. So I thought, especially for the podcast listeners, like the people who download the audio, Jesse and I did predictions last week, but by the time Wednesday came out, it's like old news and you know what it's actually going to be. So let's try to predict what Tuesday's rankings, the new rankings, are going to look like. Now, this is not what we want. We're trying to predict what we think the committee is actually going to do with this thing.
Yes.
Okay.
I did top 10.
All right. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Well, there are 12 teams that make it, right?
So, I'm aware. I mean, all right, I'll add a couple.
Okay.
Let's see here. I'll add that one. And who am I missing? Let's see here. I will add, you know what? I'll add this one. Okay. I'm ready. So
let's start at the back end.
Okay.
And work up, because I think we're going to be at least the top 2 or 3 spots. I bet we're pretty on the nose.
Probably true.
I went all the way down to 15.
Man, you're an overachiever.
I know. I had to try today. So at 15, at 15, I've got Texas A&M.
Okay.
Because there's some movement around. 14, I've got Georgia falling all the way to 14. One of my 2 biggest questions are, how far are they going to drop Georgia and Miami?
Right? Well, I think that's what everybody's big one is, right?
So I've got Georgia at 14. I've got Miami at 13. So just starting with that. Do you have either one of them or both of them in your top 12?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Both of them.
And that's fair, but...
And again, I want to remind everybody, this is what I think is going to happen, not what I want.
Correct. We're doing what we think the committee is going to do with this, not what we necessarily think that it's going to be. Jesse will be here tomorrow, and he'll give you, here's my Jesse emotion top 12.
All right.
So who's your number 12, Vince?
Ole Miss.
That's what I've got.
Yeah.
All right. We both got Ole Miss at number 12 after that big win over Georgia. So that means you've still got Georgia ahead of Ole Miss, even though Ole Miss has got the head-to-head.
I do. So I got my Miami at 11.
You've got Miami at 11. I've got SMU at 11. I bumped them up a little bit, because again, maybe I was, just too, this and, by the book kind of thing. I don't know, but
I get it. 10, I've got Georgia.
You've got Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay. I have Boise State at number 10. So, again, this is, Boise State's only loss is Oregon. So do they, because it's an SEC team, even with 2 losses, do they keep Georgia ahead of all these other teams who have been kind of steadily working their way up?
Right.
Going to be a big question.
It is.
So I've got Boise State there at number 10.
I've got Alabama at 9.
That's who I've got. I've got Alabama at 9 as well. So we're both the same. So far we've got Alabama and Ole Miss on the same spots.
Okay. Number 8 is where the Irish fall in.
That's what I've got.
Look at that, man. We're right there.
Okay. Trending. Yeah. So I'm going to guess. Go ahead.
I was going to say, my next one is BYU, and
we're the same there too.
I don't think BYU should be there because I feel like the referees won them that game, but they still won it, and they're still undefeated, and so I think that's where they end up slotting in. That was a sham. That was an absolute sham. They lost that game fair and square, but
again, Vince, if you'd looked at the outline, this will come up at the end of rapid fire.
I know, but we're talking about the rankings.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I did look at the outline. I know that it's coming up, but I just feel like I had to say that at that point. But I've got BYU at 7.
Okay, so John says SMU won't be in the playoff. Again, we've got another question coming up sort of related to this. So we'll kind of save that here for just a second. So here's what we've got so far. We both got Ole Miss at number 12. Vince has got Miami at number 11. I've got SMU in that spot. Vince has got Georgia at number 10. I've got Boise State. We both have Alabama at number 9. Both have Notre Dame at number 8. Both have BYU at number 7. Number 6, Indiana.
Tennessee.
Okay, I've got Indiana in this spot.
I gave IU a lot of props in this particular poll. Again, not what I think, but what I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna give an undefeated Big Ten team some love because they beat a blue blood in Michigan.
Even though the blue blood isn't that good,
I know
this year.
I know that, and you know that.
Right.
I'm not sure the committee is aware of that.
Right.
That's all.
So you're not. I take it you're not going to have SMU in your top 12 based on the way you're going right now, even though their only loss is to BYU.
Yeah. I mean, they would have been probably 13, actually, as I'm looking at this. But, yeah, not yet.
See, and this is why I've got Miami out and I've got SMU in.
Fair.
So
I just the biggest problem for me is that is a massive drop from where they were. I'm not saying they don't deserve it.
I get it.
You know what I
mean?
mean?
If you look at the human polls this week, there were some massive drops. These teams dropped 8 and 9 spots.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I don't know if the committee is going to drop teams that drastically. I think they're going to want to try to pat themselves on the back a little bit too much.
The thing with me is Miami was living on the edge. They were flirting with disaster for a long time, and you can only do that for so long, and it finally caught up to them. And, again, like as you look at data points, Notre Dame just beat that same Georgia Tech team a couple of weeks ago. So, like a check mark for Notre Dame. And, like SMU, their only loss is to BYU. That's still a better loss than what Miami just had to Georgia Tech. And again, the fact that they'd been kind of dancing with that for a little bit. And it really, to me, it also kind of confirmed that other than Cam Ward, there's just not a whole lot of substance to that Miami
And there
team.
hasn't been all year, but they've been winning. So they got credit for that,
Exactly.
All right.
Okay. All right. So who's your number 5?
Penn State.
You've got Penn State at number 5.
Yep.
I have Tennessee at number 5. So you've got Tennessee at number 6. I've got them at number 5. And I've actually got Penn State at number 4. So that means we'll have a difference here too. Who do you have at 4?
That's where I have IU.
Okay. You got IU all the way up to number 4. I've got them at number 6.
And there's a couple of reasons for that, right? I think that they want to absolutely prop up the Ohio State IU game. And that is now going to be, not that it wasn't a big matchup before, but now it's number 2 versus number 4. Well, I just gave away who my number 2 was. Not surprising. They were number 2 last week. But that's also one of the reasons I think that they keep Penn State where they are, because they want to prop up somebody. Somebody in the Big Ten needs to be propped, because I don't think the Big Ten's all that great. And right now, that team is Ohio State. Now, if Ohio State loses to IU, then they just probably flip, and Ohio State will drop a little bit further. But they've got to prop up. They got to prop up the strength of schedule, and so that's why I think IU and Penn State are going to be where they are.
Okay, so I'm going to guess we've got the exact same 1, 2, 3. Would be my guess.
Based on what I just, yeah.
Texas at number 3.
Yep.
Ohio State at number 2.
Yep.
Oregon still at number 1.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's what I got.
Do you have a major difference from, like, if this was yours? Like, would you still have Notre Dame at number 8, or would you have them higher, for example? Vince, would Notre Dame be your number 1 team this week?
No. I saw that on there, and I wasn't sure if it was a typo. To be perfectly honest, you want to talk about reading the outline.
I meant to actually leave that off and then put it on afterwards. I accidentally included it in yours. So
I would not have them at number 1. No. The problem is I think they're better than BYU. I think they're better than Tennessee. I think they're better than Penn State, but they got to keep winning at this point. Like BYU should have lost, right? But they won. They've got a 0 in the loss column. And I don't think that the committee is going to change that. I personally, when just looking at the teams playing, I would probably have Notre Dame in like the 5-6 range, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, I mean, look, Navy was still ranked when Notre Dame played them. They scored 51 points against them. Georgia Tech, who just beat Miami, Notre Dame scored 31 points against them. Against those two teams alone, that's 82 points that they have scored, they scored in those two games. So like you talk about a team that's going in the right direction right now. And I want to look back. I need to look and see. So Texas A&M gave up 44 to South Carolina. They gave up 24 points to Mississippi State in a win over Mississippi State. So Notre Dame's 23 points is still the third most scored against Texas A&M this season. So like when you look at, kind of like, quality defense, they went against and all that different kind of, look, Northern Illinois loss is still.
Oh, it means something.
And it's still going to be something that a lot of people are not going to be able to get over. And it is still something that you have to you sort of have to figure out, okay, what do you do with Notre Dame because they do have that loss. But, again, like when you look at recency and what they're doing right now, just like we said last week, it's one thing you still have to beat Florida State, but you can't struggle in beating Florida State. I know a lot of people weren't necessarily happy with, how it looked for parts of the first half, but they ended up scoring 52 points and only giving up 3.
Right. Right. I mean, look, I still think things are probably going to work out above them. I think that there's a decent chance Penn State loses to Minnesota in a couple of weeks. I think IU is going to lose to Ohio State. I think Tennessee is going to lose to Georgia. All of those things will help Notre Dame, obviously. But again, if they're going to be slotted in the 8 hole there, I'm okay with that for right now. I really am. They're still within spitting distance of where they want to be. Now, if you war gamed this out into the bracket, right, and the actual seeding, I think that pushes Notre Dame down into a visiting team in that first round.
Because they're sitting there at number 8. Because let me see, Big Ten. Basically, you've got Ohio State sitting there at number 2. So
you've got IU that's going to get bumped out of there too.
Right. So one of those. Well, I guess my point is, right, one of those Big Ten teams would be the number 5 seed, basically. Most
Correct. Likely. And the other one, right now there's
and the other one's going to be a little bit lower than that at whatever.
There's point. 3 Big Ten teams in the top 4 right now.
Yeah, and
they're all going to get bumped out of that top 4. You know what I mean? There's not going to be 3 Big Ten teams in the final rankings because 2 of them are going to play. Well, I'm sorry, I have 3 Big Ten teams in the top 4 in my little rankings, right? That won't be there because
I've got 4 in the top 6.
Yeah, and Ohio State's going to play IU. That's going to change things, obviously. So, some things are going to work its way through. And then conference championships won't necessarily knock somebody out, but I think it will affect the seedings.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think, a loser of a conference championship could be a potential game hoster going in and then maybe have to go on the road if they get beat soundly in a conference championship game. You know what I mean? So they won't be out, but I think their road might get tougher.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see, as Antoine is saying, I'm really curious to see where Miami is ranked. I can't, I've got Miami falling all the way down to number 11. I don't think they'll be ahead of Notre Dame, but that's just what I think. And I'm like, what happens with SMU as well? Will SMU sort of make up that ground? Like the thing with SMU, the thing with SMU, it's not that they're really, from a resume standpoint, not that much different than IU. And in fact, they've got a better strength of schedule than IU. The only difference between them is SMU has the loss to BYU. So at least they can say they have a loss to a team that's in contention. But, my point is, even though they have a loss, they've got a better strength of schedule than Indiana. And as a result, they've got one more loss than Indiana.
Right.
Yeah. So I kind of think, SMU, I'm really curious to see if they make up a little bit of ground. They don't have a ton to make up, but if they kind of jump up a little bit, because I do think they got a little bit of disrespect last week with their ranking.
Fair enough.
And now there's reason enough to put them ahead of Miami as well after Miami's loss.
That is actually very true. I could definitely see that happen.
Scale of 1 to 10, after Miami's loss to Georgia Tech, rate the ACC's chances to get 2 playoff bids.
A 2.5. I really don't think that they're going to. Because, if you take the top 2 teams, right, you've got SMU and you've got Miami playing against each other in the conference championship. And if, one of those teams is going to get a second loss, and I think they're out at that point, because every talking head out there will say, well, the Big Ten and the SEC are better than the ACC, and 2-loss teams in those conferences deserve to get in over a 2-loss team in the ACC. So I think it's a very, very low probability.
I do too. I'd actually put it at a 1. I just don't see. I think it's going to be a winner take all in the ACC championship game. I don't see a second bid. The only chance they had at getting 2 bids is if Miami had stayed undefeated.
Correct.
And then SMU or Clemson, whoever it ends up being, ended up beating Miami in the conference championship game. Now, with all of them having at least 1 loss, and remember, SMU is still undefeated in conference play. Their only loss, obviously, was a non-conference game to BYU, but they all still have 1 overall loss. I just don't see a second bid, going to the ACC.
Nope.
So, again, that's something that works in Notre Dame's favor as well.
Completely agree. And I wanted to look to see what the remaining SMU schedule is. So they've got Boston College, Virginia, and Cal. Chances of them winning out, I think, are pretty solid.
Should be pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, what about 25 hours from now, we'll get the second release.
I'm excited.
We'll see what it looks like.
Yeah. Well, it's at 8:30 tomorrow night, actually.
Oh, is it later tomorrow night?
Later.
Are they doing it like halftime of the Kansas-Michigan State game or something?
Probably. I just saw that it was at 8:30, so that would make sense.
They must be.
That would make sense.
Big win for the Jayhawks, by the way. Speaking of Jayhawks, we'll stick this with football.
Yes. They got a chance to make some noise.
Don't rule out my Jayhawks as a spoiler in this whole thing, the way they've been playing the last couple of weeks. They've got BYU coming up. Yes. BYU cannot overlook Kansas now.
That's all I'm saying. Look, I was high on Kansas coming into the season, and they have let me down, Sean Stiers. This is their chance.
Tell me about it.
This is their chance to make amends.
Yes.
Right now. They got to go on the road to do it. But come on, baby.
Held off Iowa State completely, as if Iowa State still had any chance after getting their first loss the week before. They are completely toast right now after losing to Kansas last weekend. So that's right. Jayhawks got a chance to spoil the party here at the end. I love it.
Because I think BYU dropped. I think they dropped pretty hard. But again, obviously the Big 12 is going to get their champion in. But who the heck knows who that's going to be at this point? I mean, I don't know, Sean. I think you could replace your last question with ACC with Big 12, and I would put it at like a 1 as well.
If BYU had lost, I think that was the case. But if BYU wins out, Colorado is red hot right now. And if you get those 2 teams in the conference championship game and Colorado wins, I think that BYU is getting in as well, most likely. I don't think that they would fall that far, especially, depending on how high BYU kind of climbs these next couple of weeks. If they're sitting there at 5 or 6 going into conference championship game, and then they would lose to Colorado, I don't think they're going to fall all the way out of the top 12. I think they're the 12 seed at the worst in that situation.
Listen, Sean, I'm going to need Kansas to go 2-0 over the next 2 weeks. Okay. Do you know who they have in 2 weeks?
Kansas?
Yeah.
Well, I know they've got BYU. I'm trying to remember who they have at the end of the do they have the Buffaloes at the end of the year?
Next week. It's the second to last game.
Wow. So they've got, that's right. They've got Colorado and they've got BYU both coming up. Making you happy. Making you happy.
So come on, man. Kansas can just blow the Big 12 up here over the next couple of weeks. Okay. They can start stealing chances.
And look, like the way they've been scoring, like against Colorado, I think they're gonna put some points on the board against the Buffaloes.
If Kansas goes 2-0 over the next 2 weeks, Sean, I think you're looking the Big 12 right in the face of not being one of the top 4 seeds.
Are you willing to say you would streak around your house at midnight if Kansas wins both of these games?
I would be pretty happy if that was the case. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie.
I'll buy you a Red Hot Chili Peppers sock. You remember that from like back in the 80s, early 90s when they were dancing around with the socks on?
I do.
All right.
I do.
All right. Everybody was here. Joe heard it. We all heard it.
It's poor kids.
I'll buy you a tube sock, and I'll let you go that direction.
Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate that. And the problem is I've got 2 sets of ears just paying attention right now too. So
are you saying you might not be allowed back in the school if
I
that
don't
were to
know.
happen?
We'll set the scene.
Vince is blood sugar sex magic. I mean, that's what he is right there. All right. So Marcus Freeman was asked today if he might like to have more night games after experiencing all that atmosphere Saturday night at Notre Dame Stadium.
That's a double-edged sword, as they say. The atmosphere environment is different at night games. We know that. It's just, it's a little bit, I don't know if it's the lights, it's the crowd, I don't know what it is. It's electric. But there's also a cost on the back end of that, right? And maybe it's that. I don't know if anybody can see what you just did, but maybe it's that. But the back end of that, man, is the lack of rest, right? You lose the valuable sleep and recovery that you need post-game on Saturdays, especially a night away game, but even at home. And I think our players, obviously, Sunday they have their day off, so they can try to recover a little bit. But coaches, we're up and we're at it. We got to go. And so that's the cost of having some of those electric games at night. But again, if Pete wants to schedule more night games, I'm all for it.
Come on, man. You get all the sleep you need when you're dead. I mean, let's go. Let's go. Come on. What do you think? More night games?
On the same page. All right. We're on the same page.
But we're old. Like, they're young. Those players, I realize the players, 300 days a year, they're training for this and the whole thing. They're young. They get over it fast, right? It's like, old guys like us, you drink more Mountain Dew. I drink more coffee. I mean, I drank a whole pot of coffee, I think, today after, late nights, 2 nights in a row.
It was tough for you.
So what do you think? You want more night games at Notre Dame Stadium?
No, I'm not going to die. I'm going to die on that hill. I do not want more night games. I do think, obviously the fans are more electric. I think the players enjoy it. I mean, obviously if that's the case, then, as a coach, you're like, yeah, let's roll it up. Let's do some more night games and things like that. But do we all remember what happened last year when they had that string of night games?
That's what I was going to say. Like,
didn't end well, guys.
They've been very fortunate this year. They've only had one road night game this year,
right?
The Texas A&M game,
right?
Like that's usually if the opponent is worth playing when Notre Dame goes on the road, ESPN and CB, they all want Notre Dame at night.
Yep. And they were that team last year when they got to the end of that string of night games, they were done. They were exhausted.
Yeah.
It's not great for the team. Yes, in once in a blue moon, at once every 4 games maybe, or something like that. Okay, let's talk about it. But you don't want a bunch of night games in a row, man. Like that will wear on you, and it did on last year's team. So people have very convenient memories of night games, and it didn't end well last year. So there is some rhyme or reason to why I don't necessarily like a bunch of night games. but the 3:55 bedtime wasn't cool. But it does wear on the team and the coaching staff and like the support staff and everything else.
I mean, look, we know we're going to have Notre Dame and USC next year. It's going to be a night game.
Sure.
Like Texas A&M
could probably be a night
probably
game.
A good chance of a night game. So that's 2 right there. Like 2 is enough. Completely fine with that. Like,
because you're going to get some away night games too. Like those are going to happen, right? I mean, let's be honest. Of the final 4 games of the season, 3 of them are probably going to be night games.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean,
and still important to remember that even though the Yankee Stadium game is at Yankee Stadium, it is going to be a primetime game. It's going to kick off
at 7 o'clock game. So, and it's an NBC game. So for all you Todd Blackledge lovers, he's going to be back, baby.
That's what, do you think we'll actually get him for that, or you think they'll just go back to Hicks and Garrett?
It's a night game. I think he does the night games.
I don't know I don't know what the Big Ten matchups are in a couple of weeks, because as of now, I don't think there've been no like announcers like officially announced or anything.
Right, but doesn't that crew usually do the NBC night game?
This is only the second year of it. I haven't. I mean, they are considered the number 1 crew, like the primetime crew, but they also don't forget have Peacock and stuff, so I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't think they'd stick their quote unquote number 1 crew on Peacock.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, it's going to be 2 ranked teams, so
this is true.
I would think that there would be a very good shot of it. We'll see. If you didn't get your fill of Todd Blackledge this first time, you've got more opportunities, baby.
Because right now, the Fox games have been announced for that weekend.
Have they?
So Ohio State IU is at noon. Maryland, Iowa is on the Big Ten Network at noon. And Michigan Northwestern is on FS1 at 3:30. The other, let's see. And then Michigan State and Purdue is a Friday night game at 8 o'clock on Fox, which nobody cares about. And then you've got 4 other matchups. Penn State, Minnesota, Illinois, Rutgers, Wisconsin, Nebraska, USC, UCLA, and those are all TBD at the moment.
So we don't know what time they're going to take place.
Correct. Yeah. They're on Saturday, but not what
But
time.
there is still the possibility that you could have it like on NBC in the middle of the afternoon.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. The only thing we know for sure is that Notre Dame's playing at night.
Right.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank, Vince. Just fill in the blank. No, Notre Dame's offensive performance against Florida State was blank.
Started out average, ended up above average. They were a little rusty to start things off, and then I think they kind of got it figured out. I think there's a few things that maybe have contributed to the rust, maybe coming off the bye to a degree. I think they were trying a few different things offensively that I don't know that was necessary to try, or maybe I don't know. But they didn't look very crisp right off the bat. And so, but then they ended up, scoring on a bunch of consecutive drives. So they ended up just fine. So they were average to above and then moving to above average.
Yeah, it was a little clunky early on, but by the time you sit back, and this is why, I just when people start, oh, this offense is horrible again. What's going on? It's the first quarter. When I see this social media stuff in the first quarter, it's like, put it away.
Right.
Put it away. Let this thing play out. Let it breathe a little bit. I mean, they end up rushing for over 200 yards, and again, Jadarian Price, great big explosive run, always awesome to see. He ends up with 95 yards. Riley Leonard ends up with 70 yards, you didn't have this one big, sort of massive rushing game, but as a team, once again, you're over 200 yards, 453 total yards in the offense. Yeah. The offense by itself, 45 points without Luke Talic's touchdown at the end. So just ended up being very, very impressive, pretty balanced overall. I agree with what you're saying. It looked like the combination of coming out of a bye, and it definitely looked like kind of one of those weeks that maybe, like they stuck too much with against NIU. It's like, let's just do what works. How about we do that? Let's do what works, and we'll score some points and, save some of that other stuff for later. But overall, came away pretty impressed when it was all said and done.
They did what they needed to do.
I'm going to go to this last one. When are you and Brian starting upon further review, by the way? Do we know yet? 7 o'clock? All right. We'll go ahead and finish with this last one then.
All right.
Where is it? If I can find it. So, Utah Athletic Director Mark Harland, not happy after his team's loss to BYU Saturday night. He was ticked about BYU being called for pass interference, which negated their sack, the Utah sack that would have effectively ended the game. And, big upset over their rival in the Holy War out there. So I've got the audio of Harland from his impromptu press conference after the game. Now, the level starts a little bit hot here because this took it like one of the TV guys, had the sound. So the level starts a little soft. They get it figured out here. So kind of bear with it for a couple of seconds here.
For 12 years, this game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in the Big 12, but tonight I am not. We won this game. Someone else stole it from us. Very disappointed. I will talk to the commissioner. This was not fair to our team. I'm disgusted by the professionalism of the officiating crew tonight. Thank you.
We're excited to be in the Big 12, but we're not excited to be in the Big 12 tonight. What do you think? Utah AD Vince firing it up.
I hope he gets paid well because he's going to get fined.
Is the school going to pay the fine?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't know the answer to that one, and I'm a little nervous for him on that. But, I don't disagree with them. That game was absolutely stolen from them. That was a garbage call that had nothing to do with the play. The quarterback for BYU had zero opportunity to throw that ball because Utah was like heat-seeking missiles off the edge with their front on that kid. He had no chance to throw the football, regardless of whatever happened on the back end. It was a really, 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 really bad call in that moment. I'm sorry, and I am usually on the side of, if it's a foul, call a foul. Doesn't matter what time of the game it is, when it's like basketball or something like that. But I even watched the replay, and I still don't see the penalty.
I mean, you have to look for it. You have to, if you want to go by the letter of the law, okay. I think we've all seen probably a lot worse that goes uncalled. Quite a bit. You just don't see the athletic director dropping into a hot mic in front of the cameras.
Well, usually they're not interviewing the athletic director. Like, I'm guessing he went in there and he's like, I'm talking.
He did. Right? The coach was supposed to do his thing. He went in before they ever started and just plopped down and was like, here's the deal. And, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure Kyle Whittingham appreciates it. I'm sure all the Utah fans and, all the players appreciate it. And he's speaking the truth, man. He's speaking the truth. He was fined $40,000, by the way.
Woo!
$40,000. Honestly, that's not that much when you
for people that make that kind of money.
He went right at the Big 12. Right at the Big 12.
Yes, he did. But you know what? There were opportunities, obviously, after that to stop them and do all these different things, man. But there were a couple of different situations there towards the end where they had him for a safety, but a timeout was called, and then they make the defensive holding call. It's just like, man, did they get bailed out on a couple of different occasions.
I mean, you do nothing to, dissuade, sort of the notion that you're trying to protect your gravy train, the team with the best chance, obviously, of making it to the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about a rivalry game. I mean, come on.
It was bad. It was real bad. It was really bad, Sean.
Very bad. All right. Well, that's going to do it. Vince has got upon further review coming up with Mr. Driscoll tonight, 7 o'clock. Going to dig in deep to that Notre Dame Florida State game. Looking forward to that. Coming up on tomorrow's show. I don't know if Jesse's going to drag some whiteboard out or not?
Oh,
I suppose I need to hit him up and see if any whiteboard is forthcoming for tomorrow's show. We got plenty on tomorrow's show, though, as well. A lot of stuff that we're going to hit, as we look forward as well to Virginia coming up this week, and college football playoff rankings edition number 2 coming out tomorrow. Appreciate everybody being here. And again, happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans out there. And like I said, I know we've got a lot who watch and listen to our shows. So appreciate you being here. As always, hit the like button before you leave if you would, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.